Now we come to the second topic for today. The question is the United States trying to colonize East Africa to get their hands on the graphite? Here's why I'm asking this question. There was a recent policy paper I just read from the Peterson Institute for International Economics. It's a think tank, and then the policy paper is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Defense. And one of the things they're advocating is that the United States should get more involved in East Africa, specifically Mozambique, Madagascar, and Tanzania, because the United States needs sources of graphite. Now, let's talk. On a global stage, China is the number one player when it comes to graphite. They export graphite, both dust and processed. But because the US and China are no longer friends, you know the tension between the US and China. Now, because the US and China are no longer friends, China is beginning to build itself to be self-sufficient because clearly China saw what happened with Russia and with this whole sanctions that US threw at Russia. So now they are trying to become more self-sufficient in certain areas, particularly the areas of green energy, green infrastructure, because the world is now beginning to implement this whole thing of the green agenda. So China, as a result of the whole thing that's going on, China is looking at it is in their interest to protect several critical minerals and critical things that China needs to not just to play in the green arena, but also to be a big player and a dominant force in the green arena. So because of that, China reduced its supply of graphite to the world. You know, graphite is used for electric batteries, for batteries, electric cars, and the rest of it. So China reduced its supply. I believe it reduced it by 90%, if I'm not mistaken. Now, when the US saw that, now yes, the United States has graphite, but they're also looking for more ways because as China is trying to protect itself, to set up itself as a leader in the green arena, United States is also trying to do the same thing. So now China is out of the picture with graphite. US is looking for other places where they can get graphite to also protect their green arena. Now, this policy paper sponsored by the Defense Department, US Defense Department, is suggesting that as because Brazil is also a player, but it's also suggesting that United States should look towards Africa and set up itself in East Africa, particularly Mozambique, Madagascar, and Tanzania, because they have the graphite that is needed. So the policy paper goes on to talk about the political landscape in those countries, the challenges, the advantages. It lays it all out. In fact, one of the reasons it's supporting the United States to come to East Africa and set up camp is because the population of those countries also look at the US in a positive light. So it's a good thing. Then they began to the paper also made some very interesting statements, or it laid out some very interesting facts. So one of the things it said is that why it's written for these three East African countries is because the companies mining graphite in these three countries are headquartered in US friendly countries. Countries like most of them are in Australia, but we also have companies from Canada and companies from United Kingdom mining graphite in these three countries. So if you look at it, Australia, Canada, and United Kingdom are allies of the United States. In fact, I think it's almost going to be very difficult for them to break ties with the US. So they are saying that therefore it is safe for United States to get into those countries. But there's some things I want to mention from this policy paper. I think it should be a wake up call for Africans. Currently, Mozambique and Madagascar are already exporting graphite to the US. So the graphite going into United States from Mozambique and Madagascar are about 22.4% by volume, but it is about 9.2%, or sorry, 9.6% by value. So now it shows you such a discrepancy. Why is 22 over 22% volume being exported, but then this volume of 22% is just 9.6% value? It tells you that these countries are just exporting raw material. So they're exporting graphite flake and dust. They are not exporting processed graphite. So meaning that after they send these raw materials to the United States, it still needs to be processed. And I've said it on this show several times, and a lot of people already know that the main money made to boost any economy is not by exporting raw materials. It is by exporting finished goods or at least value added products. So even as they're looking to, the policy paper clearly lays it out that even as they're looking to import graphite from these countries, they should also bear in mind that they need to process it because it's low value. Another thing I want to mention is the question is why are our critical minerals in 2024? Why are most of our critical minerals in Africa in the hands of foreigners? Where are the local businesses? Don't we have businesses from Mozambique, locally owned, from Madagascar and Tanzania, who are into the export of graphite? Why is it clearly as clearly stated in this policy paper? Why is it that such a large chunk of our minerals are in the hands of our graphite in East Africa, are in the hands of companies in Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom? And I believe it's only in Africa you see things like this. This is not so in the United States. Let's look at the United States oil sector, for example. The United States, everybody already knows that oil is a critical mineral. The world needs oil to run. Or if you look at the US, because US is a large producer of crude oil, and oil and refined oil. If you look at the oil sector in the United States, it is owned by American businesses. American businesses. Let's also look at this graphite sector in China that they are just trying to they just limited the export of it. Both the mining of the graphite and the processing of the graphite are owned by mostly Chinese companies. So explain to me why it is okay for America, for the United States to make sure that critical minerals in their country are run by American businesses. And China understands that the critical minerals in China, because they are national assets, China understands that the critical minerals in China should be run by Chinese companies. It is only in Africa that our graphite it is run by companies in Australia and Canada and the United States. Look at our oil sector. We're seeing outsiders like Chevron, like Shell, all across the country. Look at diamonds. We are seeing the bears. So why is it if they understand and this um global these world powers like US and China understand the importance of keeping this critical mineral in the hands of local businesses, why did that Africa has not realized this thing? Now I'm saying this now because I want us to begin to think how we can come in. At this point, it is too far. We are like too far down this current system that we can't be blaming outsiders. We can't be focusing the blame on outsiders. We can say, oh, it's the way they after it's the way it was during colonialism, and after colonialism they made sure the system stay in place because Africa should be the only place for collecting raw materials. I know, I have heard that, but I'm saying that this system can only continue as long as we let it. As long as we let it. If we say no, it will not continue. It will not continue. Yes, we are going to get pushback. We are going to get sabotage. We just saw what is going on with the Nigerian government and Dangote refinery. I covered that in the last episode of this show. So we know we will get sabotage. We know we'll get pushback. We know we'll get people who are trying to break and destroy our efforts. But we don't have to let it. So what am I advocating? Businesses in Africa, enter. You ask yourself, you that is watching me now, what can you do? What can you do? How can you come in? How can you play? I said this in a previous segment of this show. We know what they are using these minerals to do. We know. So if we are going to ensure that Africa is going to be a big deal, not just a place for exporting raw materials, because if you keep doing that, there's no development for you. But a place where we can add value to our minerals and then export finished products. That is the only way to grow the African economy. And if you are going to do this, ask yourself, how can you come in? I have just told you. I'll leave the link to this paper in the description so you can go and read it. I've just told you now that United States is in the market, is really looking for other places where you can get um graphite from. It's in the market for it. So how can you come in? We need more businesses who are going to come in to mine our graphite and not just mine because like I said, no, we should focus more on adding value. You've seen it in this policy paper. They clearly stated in this policy paper that the problem A, Madagascar and Mozambique are responsible for over 22% exports by volume, but barely 9.6% by value. And they are saying, well, even as we get this, just know we have to refine for batteries, process for batteries, and the rest of it. So you now think, how can you come in? Why can't you set up a processing plant of graphite in Mozambique, owned by local businesses? In Madagascar, owned by local businesses. In Tanzania, owned by local businesses. Let's not wait for the government, because if you wait for the government, nothing is going to get done. Since I was born, we've been waiting for government. So if we as Africans are going to create an alternative path for ourselves to ensure that Africa becomes prosperous, we need to start thinking outside the box and remove our mind from the government. Let's act as if the government does not exist. Because if you keep waiting for them, nothing will get done. Ask yourself as an individual, how can I come in? What can I do? What will it take to set up a graphite processing plant in Mozambique? Who do I need to work with? We need to get very intentional with this thing, because the building Africa is a collective effort, and building Africa at this point is existential. If not, you see the way the world is arranging now, everybody is trying to adjust themselves. The multipolar world is forming. If we don't come in and begin to do things in Africa's interest now, 100 years down the line, we'll still be seeing this nonsense. So remove your mind from the government. Let's stop. Yes, the government is bad. I accept. The government is incompetent. No problem. The government is silly. Okay, no problem. You as an individual, what can you do? That's how we need to start thinking in Africa. What can you do? Me as Amanda, what can I do? I'm already getting ideas of things I'm going to do. For you, I want you to begin to think in that light. If not, 100 years from now, this issue we are complaining about, our great grandchildren will still be complaining about it. And if we leave them with the problem we met, if we leave our descendants with the problems we met, why did we show up? Why did we show up? We inherited the challenges from our grandparents. We inherited the challenges from our parents, and we're leaving them for our children and our grandchildren. Then why did we come on the scene? So this is how I want us to begin to think. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. What are the things we can do at this point? How can we come together at this point to make sure we wrestle Africa out of the hands of those who really don't care about it, including our leaders, many of our leaders? What can we do? How can we come into play in our, because these critical minerals, they are existential, they are national assets, they are continental assets. We saw, we've seen countries like in Europe make name some of their businesses are not just minerals, businesses, national assets. Talk more about critical minerals that the world needs to run. And even in this future, this green future that the world is trying to adjust itself from, it's still needed. So let me know, give me ideas in the comment section below. What can we do and how can we change things? And also, don't as always, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your friends so that we can reach more people across the continent and across the world who are interested in transforming the story of Africa.